Channel 31 acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which this episode was filmed, the Kurnai peoples, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. We extend those respects to the Wurundjeri peoples of the Kulin Nation, the land on which the Channel 31 studios are based.
Hi, I'm Bridie Shepherd, and today on the Eco Show I am in beautiful East Gippsland. Today I'll be meeting the wonderful people at Waterholes Wildlife Sanctuary, where I'll be learning about how they care for injured native wildlife.
Raymond Island is located in East Gippsland, about 45 minutes out of Bairnsdale. Approximately 7 kilometres long and 2.5 kilometres wide, Raymond Island is best known as a tourist destination. Here, international and local visitors can see lots of native fauna in their natural habitat, but specifically koalas. I'm getting a tour of the island today with Waterholes Wildlife Sanctuary founder Susan Poulos, and can't wait to learn all about the work her organisation is doing.
Well, welcome to Raymond Island. I lived here for around 15 years and relocated last year to a bigger property with a purpose for rehabilitation of koalas and kangaroos. I've been a wildlife carer for over 10 years. Established the shelter in 2013 here on the island. We were called Raymond Island Koala and Wildlife Shelter. And then when I relocated last year to the mainland, I changed my name to Waterholes, which is where I live now, Waterholes Wildlife Sanctuary. And the reason I call it a sanctuary is it's an absolute sanctuary for koalas and kangaroos, especially koalas with a lot of habitat, a lot of food trees. So yeah, it's a beautiful spot. You know, welfare of koalas is my number one. And that's why I moved. I moved to have more space to raise and rehabilitate and plenty of food and be able to soft release in a safe, natural environment.
The first koalas were brought here in 1953 from Phillip Island to ease overpopulation. The koala population on Raymond Island quickly grew to more than 600, and then problems of overbrowsing began. Waterholes Wildlife Sanctuary works with the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning and local vets to manage Raymond Island's koala population. Each year they catch healthy koalas and then release them on the mainland. There can be up to 250 koalas living on the island, but unfortunately there is only enough food for about 50.
So koalas love coastal manna. When we go home up to the sanctuary, you'll see a different manna gum, which is the mountain manna gums. So this is coastal manna, which is on the sandy soil. And we're going to go up to the mountains, which is mountain manna gum. Favourite tree for koalas up in the forest.
Is there a revegetation project going on here to sort of replace?
Yes, yeah, there's been a lot of trees planted over the years. Look, that's great, but we need to look after the mature trees for the koalas now to eat. Myself, over the years, I've grown thousands of trees myself. I've collected the seed from the local species and grown them from little seeds to seedlings and planted. So I've planted a lot of trees myself, Jody, and a lot of people. We've given away trees for free to encourage people to support the koalas, yeah. So this is the main koala habitat here. This is the reserve, which is where the tourists can come on the Koala Trail walk right through here, goes right up back to the ferry. And this is the back of the residential area. And this is the coastal manna gum, the main species of koala food on the island.
Great.
So where I showed you before, it's been heavily browsed. This area is not as affected. These trees are not too bad. We've had a little bit of rain, which helps. But yeah, hopefully we can see a koala in a minute as we go for a bit of a wander and
keep our eyes up.
Yeah. There's no burning anymore on the island. There was a lot of consultation with islanders and so forth. Years ago we formed a group to try and manage the habitat here better.
Yep.
And that way the burning has pretty much ceased now, and it's reduced to just slashing, that sort of maintenance to keep the vegetation low, close to the housing. And also, that way we can look after the habitat for the wildlife. It's about balance here on the island because we've got so many wildlife, so much wildlife, but we've also got the residents, so we've got to find that happy balance. Yeah, that's right. So I moved to the island in 2005, okay, with a new partner. And I wasn't a wildlife carer then, but I've always wanted to work with wildlife, and at one stage wanted to be a park ranger. But I ended up working with disabled adults instead for a while. But my passion and love is koalas and kangaroos, well, Australian native wildlife. Due to management of habitat here, I started to get involved with what I could see was going wrong with the island, and in regards to koala welfare and protecting their habitat. So I thought, how can I do that? How can I, be an advocate for the wildlife? So I decided to become a wildlife carer. And that way I'm working closely with DELP, parks, and we have a good relationship, a really good relationship. And that way we managed to get some more respect happening for the koala management, respect for the environment, and looking after the environment for koalas. So I became a wildlife carer here. The reason it was so busy was because of loss of habitat and food trees. So koalas, the biggest issue here is starvation with koalas. That's where I became a carer, looking after them, but also it's not just about looking after the koalas, it's about looking after their food trees, their habitat. Because without that, we don't have, no tree, no koala. And it's a beautiful spot here. Like it's world renowned. People come here from all over the world to see the wildlife here in a natural environment. So it's really important to look after that habitat, otherwise we don't have the wildlife. And in that time I've probably attended to, I would say, nearly 1,000 odd koalas roughly. Wow. Not as many kangaroos, but similar, probably about 500-600. But koalas was, the main reason where I got started, and then also specialised in kangaroos, especially adults. Throughout the years, my shelter grew so huge that I relocated, which you'll see later on, and we can talk about that later, to be able to preserve the species further. My team is huge. I've got 8 registered carers under me that are, everywhere throughout East Gippsland. We've got 2 here on the island. We've got 2 registered carers here on the island. I've also got 20 acres of preserved habitat here for the wildlife still. And the wildlife need us. We've got access to the best vets. We've got, we work closely with Main Street Vet Bairnsdale, who you'll be able to meet soon. But we also work closely with Leanne Wicker at Hillsville Sanctuary, who comes to visit us and look at our koalas in care, does necropsies for us, chlamydia testing. So this was home. This was home for 15 years. I love it here, but I love my new home too. And I did that for the wildlife, relocated for the wildlife, But we specialise in Raymond Island koalas and kangaroos. My name was Raymond Island Koala and Wildlife Shelter.
What is it now?
Waterholes Wildlife Sanctuary. It's a sanctuary because it is a sanctuary for the wildlife. It's just beautiful. It's natural, safe, forested, abundant of food. It's beautiful.
Whilst filming the Eco Show, our crew chose to stay at the Riversley. Personalised, attentive service and a sense of tranquil relaxation are among the hallmarks of a stay at the Riversley, where you'll enjoy the warmth of a country hotel combined with the luxury you expect from contemporary boutique accommodation. Located in the heart of Bairnsdale on a quiet street overlooking the Mitchell River, the Riversley features elegant period fittings with tastefully appointed modern rooms, providing a unique accommodation experience. To book your stay, visit riversley.com.au.
Waterholes Wildlife Sanctuary is completely volunteer run, and the team are available 24/7 to support any of the precious wildlife on the island and surrounding areas. I'm about to chat with 2 volunteers, Jodie Sutherland and Susan Crosby, to find out what a day in the life of a rescuer is like.
Yeah, so Susie will call either Jodie or me, or both of us, and we will go out with a crate. And usually the koala will be sitting on the ground, but there's no guarantee that the koala will be sedate and
cooperative.
Cooperative. So you have had cases where they've been quite you know, they might be ill, but they're still very feisty. So, like,
don't necessarily know what's good for them.
No, they don't, and that's why nobody should ever attempt to touch a koala or pick a koala up if it's on the ground if you're not qualified, because it's quite a specialised technique. So we will come in and usually we'll pop a towel over their head, makes them a little bit more sedate and easier to sort of handle. A special way of carrying them, picking them up and just popping them into the crate and putting in some gum leaves so that they have some sort of feel of being in the bush still, even though they're not. And then we close them up, and Susie will come and take it to be assessed at the vet or back to her shelter for care.
And you're on call all the time? Do you have any downtime, weekends off?
No,
evenings off?
24/7.
24/7?
Yeah. And often, we'll have having people and crew that we can call on and rescue. Yeah, it means that if someone's not available, we've always got backup people.
That's
and everyone
right.
comes in to support.
Yeah.
So it works really well.
Seems like a lot of people are really focused on the koalas and they don't actually look at, you know, what are the koalas eating and how are they actually sustaining themselves. So do you do work around the area to maintain the trees?
There's a lot of tree planting that we do. Me personally, on my property I have 6 acres, so I'm always planting manigum trees, which is the trees that they love to eat, and there's a lot of other people on the island who are doing the same thing, which is wonderful. But yeah, it's just about habitat and really try and preserve the trees that are already here, because as you can imagine, a little tiny tree this big will take years and years and years before it's able to sustain koalas. So try and preserve what we have and plant for the future.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, because the tree planting that is done is fantastic, but that's a very long-term strategy, and it's hard to plan for succession in forests as well, because you can have a natural event that knocks out trees, and so you need to then maintain and retain all your original trees and allow those processes to continue, like more the bush regeneration process as well.
Right.
But the urban trees and the trees in the residential zone are critical for koala survival on Raymond Island. And it's about going back to those old ideas about being a custodian, and because a tree might be within your defined property and that you own that tree has a greater life outside of that, and it has the community that attaches value to that tree. So to be aware of that and to pass that tree on to future generations.
Yeah, to be a custodian of land instead of thinking that you now own that tree. And
exactly.
Because I'm sure the koalas don't really care.
No, they don't see
about
boundary.
property.
No, they don't register any property boundary at all.
It's just incredible to think that there are people out there who are constantly looking out for the wildlife and doing it on a volunteer basis over such a long period of time. I think is really, really admirable, and very, very grateful that people like you exist.
That's lovely.
It's such a labour of love as well.
It's super rewarding,
It
you
is.
know, when you can get some good outcomes and and have some little wins along the way. They can be hard fought, but they're really good when you get them.
It's really exciting hearing about the work you do, and wish you all the best.
It's time for us to depart this beautiful island and head back over to the mainland. We are on our way to Bairnsdale to visit the local veterinary clinic that has partnered with Waterholes to treat wounded animals. I'm about to speak with Dr. Jade Hammer.
Thank you so much for meeting with me, Jade. You've been working in association with Waterholes Wildlife Sanctuary for 10 years now, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yep. So we've seen a number of animals for Susie over the years.
And you take in wildlife that Susie needs to look after, and you treat them here on the premises?
Exactly, yeah. So we usually assess new arrivals fairly soon after arrival, so that we can assess their ability to be released back into the wild. And if we can agree that yes, they can be, then we will do what we can to treat them.
And is there quite a busy season? Do you see more wildlife coming in the summer?
Yeah, I think we probably do see more during the summer months. For a variety of reasons. I think there's more cars on the road, so a lot more car injuries. We see a lot of heat stroke cases, not just in koalas and kangaroos.
Can you tell me a bit about what work you do on Raymond Island to care for the koalas over there?
Sure, Raymond Island's a bit of a complex population of koalas, given the fact that they are isolated on an island. And so a lot of work is done by the department to control numbers to make the population sustainable, to avoid starvation cases, etc. So we assist in that program, providing veterinary treatment and medical intervention when that's required.
And from what I understand, that it's quite a special island because koalas were introduced there a few years back. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So, and they love the island, and they certainly populated very well. But unfortunately, there's very limited resources on the island, and with the encroachment of properties and building more houses, then those feed reserves reduced over time, and so we're lucky that the department is managing the population adequately to make the population sustainable.
And Susie was saying that a lot of koalas are starving to death, and I guess there's a problem with dehydration as well, especially when it starts getting quite warm.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, they don't get a lot of fluids through their normal diet, and on the island there is the issue of not enough feed, so that there's competition for resources, and when you combine that with fires or heat waves, then that can be catastrophic for some animals.
What's the best thing to do if you come across an injured native animal in the wild? Should you call someone first, or should you try and pick them up or look after them?
No, look, try not to move them. Try and call a rescue group, a wildlife shelter who have expertise in that particular species, and then they will assess the situation and usually involve us where the animal needs to be assessed or medical treatment's required. Yeah, it's been amazing that that areas that have been devastated are slowly having animals return, and it's amazing, how that's happened, how the animals have actually survived, and now that there's a lot of regrowth, a lot more feed available than there perhaps was prior to the bushfire during the drought period. And now this little bit of rain that we've had has been really beneficial to the recovery of the local wildlife populations.
I've caught up with Susie again, this time at her property on the mainland, which is quite far off the beaten track and very much the sanctuary she described. She is caring for many injured koalas and kangaroos here in order to rehabilitate them and return them to the wild. I'm super excited to meet some of her residents.
Okay, come around here, Bridie.
Great.
Just as we're passing, these are pouches for the outdoor kangaroos.
Wow.
That have been raised by myself and volunteers here, and what I do is I keep the juveniles in this particular house yard until they're big enough to go out into the wild. And so pouches are here for those that still want to go in a pouch because they don't have a mum anymore. So what we have to do is provide an artificial but as comforting environment as possible for them to be, for them to raise in. Some still go in, even big guys.
It's a little Joey hotel.
It is, and I just let them wean themselves. Yep, so that's outdoor pouches. Yeah, they love it here. These two in particular, goodness knows how they'll ever go out to the outside world. Look, sometimes there are kangaroos that just don't make it, and they they're not going to make it, so they tend to just hang around mum. But eventually they do, break free, although we do sadly lose some. Look, these two would like to go in the house. They stand at the door and say, "Let me in, mum." But no, they would create havoc if they were in the house.
You don't have a roo door that they can just sort of come in and out?
No.
And they don't seem to be disturbed by, having humans around so close?
Look, they are a little bit, see the shaking behaviour?
Yeah.
So he's aware of strangers. Eastern grey kangaroos are probably the hardest Australian native wildlife to raise because they are easily stressed, by strangers. So they die very quickly of, what's called myopathy, which I think we touched base on before, where they release a toxin into their body, from stress, from being chased by dogs, from car strikes, all that sort of thing. Capture, and it does end their life. Yeah, so you've got to treat that carefully. But yeah, so I do limit contact, human contact with the animals. I'm very strict like that.
So we'll keep our distance.
Yeah, they're fine. Because they're out here free, they can just go off, and we're not holding them capture or anything, so they can just go off and do their thing. Kangaroos are extremely loving animals. They're very family-orientated animals. They are very close-knit with their mobs and their families. They stay within their, like mums raising babies. Babies will stay in that with their mum for a very, very long time. And they'll still be in that mob with mum even when they're an adult. When one dies, they suffer, you know, a lot. They really do. It's quite interesting watching that. They don't cope well with losing one of their mobs, one of the members of their family.
At the back of the property, Susie has 5 koala pens to get koalas back up to full strength before releasing them into the wild.
So this is Renee.
Hi, Renee.
And this is Princess there. Where's Fizzlepop? Is she?
I love the names. Can I pat Renee?
Well, we've got an awesome carer named Stephen who names the babies for us. Not all babies, but Fizzlepop's named by him. Renee, I actually know this one.
Can I pat Renee?
Yes.
Hi. I've never patted a koala before.
See if you...
Susie has kindly allowed us into her house so we can meet the little Joeys.
And they seem to be they don't seem to be too afraid.
No, they're actually pretty good with you, actually, yeah. Kangaroos are a bit like dogs. They have a good sense of knowing people. Yeah. So I actually always say that I can tell a person by the kangaroo's reaction too, like if they're really completely freaked out.
So I passed the test.
Yeah.
Very good.
Fine. Yeah. He's the baby of the house. This is Harry.
Hello. Hi, Harry. You really are their mum, aren't you?
Yeah, so here's the baby. Where's your bubba?
Hi. You got your feet up by your nose.
I'm going to give him his bottle now. I'm hungry. Just want to hear these people.
Oh, sleepy little Harry.
I sat down with Susie for feeding time to hear more about raising kangaroos.
They're quite a misunderstood animal, I think, in the general population of people. Like until you've actually raised a kangaroo and work closely, which I have, you know, I've been working with kangaroos now every day of my life for the last 10 years. You don't realise how special these animals are and how much they actually need advocating for. I do get very emotionally attached to them and engaged in their care, and I find that it's the best way to be to look after them, if you know what I mean. But at the same time, when I lose them, you know, it's difficult. But I move on quickly because I've got many more that still need me, many more to come, and you can't lose it and fall apart. You've got to keep going, you know. That's what I do it for.
After our tour, Susie and I can finally sit down for a chat.
It really looks like a wildlife sanctuary here.
So I bought
Utopia.
this. Yeah, exactly. I bought this for the wildlife, and it just works perfectly. It's away from humans, and it's safe. There's no fencing here in the property, apart from the perimeter fence here, which is all safe for the baby kangaroos. It's, you know, it's just perfect for raising and rehabilitating injured, sick and orphan animals. Yeah.
So were you affected by the bushfires?
Yes, we were. We evacuated the animals on the 21st of, I think the 21st to 23rd of December. We had always planned to evacuate when the fire front was 10 kilometres from the sanctuary. However, the fire front did a run early in December, right past us, which then put the fire front, you know, on top of us basically. We then had to evacuate all the animals fairly fast, and that was a mammoth task.
How do you do that? How do you evacuate all of the joeys and all of the koalas?
It was huge. We had help from fellow carers on the island, awesome bunch of people that helped relocate for us down to the island. So they all went to the island, where I used to be. All the kangaroos went to the island. They also went to other areas. They went to Bairnsdale, down near Lakes Entrance. We had meat-tongue. We had animals everywhere. Incredible experience. The fire went right through here, right around us, and we had our guardian angel looking after us. So we have thousands of hectares here of unburnt habitat.
And so when you came back, did you go and pick up a lot of wildlife that were affected?
No, we didn't actually. Sadly, the fire was that catastrophic that most animals were burnt that were out on the fire. Yeah, I know it's hard to take. But however, there is a happy story here. When we got to the unburnt, there's a lot of survivors here. And so because of the position where I am, I was able to get out there with my very close friend Janice, who helps me here, and we fed all the wildlife out there on the fire grounds. We had around 15 feed stations, active feed stations that we would put food out every day. Up to 200 kilos of food a day.
What would you put out?
Apples, pears, sweet potato, carrots, chaff,
buffet for all of the natives.
Oh, we had everything you could think of. That was a mammoth task, so we were, looking after the survivors.
And you've got an incredible community that supported you throughout the bushfire time.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, we can't thank them enough. The Raymond Island community, plus the general public, people from all around the world, sending messages. We were overwhelmed with messages. In fact, so much so that I just couldn't respond to every single person. And so, yeah, I just did posts to say thank you to everyone that was thinking of us and donating and helping us, because, yeah, it was just so amazing. Yeah. Generosity of people was just, at such a hard time. It was a very emotional time when you saw the fire grounds, how bad they were. But I always find a positive out of a negative. And yeah.
Community is definitely that
positive.
Yeah.
And just seeing the animals, that did survive and looking after them.
It was a pleasure meeting the team at Waterholes Wildlife Sanctuary today and getting to see firsthand the attentive care and support they provide to wildlife. Thanks to their work, with help from state government and local vets, they are easing overpopulation on Raymond Island and ensuring the survival of our beloved koala.